Hello and welcome. My name is Kyle FtW and welcome back to another Call of Duty Vanguard video. Today we are back with another episode in my map guide series, and today we're taking a look at one of my favorite aesthetically maps in Call of Duty Vanguard, which is Red Star. Now, as I said, this isn't my favorite map in the game in general, it's just my favorite map aesthetically. I really like how this map looks, environment, etc, etc. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about the map itself. So here's an overview of Red Star, which is by far the largest map in the game. I don't know if this is going to be a two-part map guide, but it very well could be, because my Gavatu map guide was like almost 20 minutes long, and this map is almost double in size. So let's go ahead and get into this. This is, as I said, this is a very huge map, and there's a lot of stuff, and I mean a lot of stuff to cover here. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this. And if it's part 2, I will upload part 2 just later today, so that, you know, we'll have just this one map out of the way. So starting off here with the very first thing, one of the main points of this map is actually this area up here, which actually gives you line of sight to quite a bit of areas. So it gives you line of sight to that door there. It gives you a line of sight to enemies that are over there. Unfortunately, this scope is way higher of zoom than I thought it would be. Let's just go ahead and just put that rifle scope on, and we'll probably just take care of business real quick. Beautiful. All right, let's go ahead and head back over to where I just was. Yeah, that's much better. That is much better. All right, so anyways, this line of sight right here can give you a view over to that door there, as well as a view to way over there, and basically this whole middle courtyard area. This area will give you a line of sight to that. Also, as I said, it will give you a line of sight to there, and finally it will give you a line of sight to there. So one thing that I actually didn't mention here is that I will be covering each, I mean, this map can be sort of divided up into you know, lanes, I guess. It's not really a 3-lane map by any means. It's basically kind of a big square is the best way for me to describe it. So we're just going to be covering this building and this building first, and then we'll move over to that building way down there, and then that building down there, and then we'll be covering this big one here. So again, covering that. Now if we head over here to our left, we can go through this area, and this takes us over into one of the kind of connecting points between that spawn and this spawn. So if you're going to run through this door, make sure you keep your sights up and wait for enemies to come through. You could also use this head glitch to get a line of sight to enemies there. You don't really get a head glitch to enemies that are there, but if you know, if you're able to, you can even just get a line of sight to enemies that are coming through there as well, which is pretty useful. And then if I come over here, I can get a line of sight to enemies that are there, and even up there on the roof. So now coming back here into this building, there is a window there which you actually can't access, but you can even climb up here, and you can just take enemies by surprise that are coming through there. Also, if I go through this door, this takes me into the middle of the map, where I have a couple of options. I can either run to my right and go through there, run to my left and go through there, or go right in front of me and go through there, which is very useful as well. And then also, this is a very kind of popular head glitch also. This gives me a line of sight to enemies that are spawning over there, as well as enemies that are coming through that door. And if I come as far back, nope, never mind, you actually can't do that. I was gonna say that maybe you could come back all the way on this barrel and get a line of sight to enemies up there, but unfortunately you can't. So if you want to get a line of sight to enemies that are up there, you're gonna have to come all the way over here. But at this point, you're putting yourself kind of at a big disadvantage, because enemies that are all over there can easily see you. And plus, if enemies are spawning over there and you're here, you're going to put yourself at a kind of a scary situation. So continuing on here with this map, we can go ahead and go through here. Now, this really isn't that much of a useful area. I mean, you can use this as a kind of a flanking route. You can sprint all the way through here and then get, you know, a line of sight to enemies that are over there and capturing A there. Or even you can get a line of sight to enemies that are in this main building here, which we'll cover in a second. But for the most part, you could probably just come back here, maybe even go prone and call in a kill streak. Now, I do make these map guides around sort of based team modes like TDM, Domination, Kill Confirmed, etc. But this would also be a pretty good place for modes like TDM or for free-for-all. I think this would be kind of a more popular area to be aware of. But in team modes, I wouldn't say that this area is very popular. It's kind of a good flanking route, but that is pretty much the extent of it. You can climb up here and get a little head glitch to enemies that are coming from there, as well as up there, which is very, very useful. Now that this area is out of the way, we'll go ahead and jump into this first big main building of the map, and this is where a lot of the action will go down. I mean, I would say that arguably maybe 50%, maybe give or take, of the action happens in this building, because this is where the B flag is. This also gives you a kind of a line of sight to both spawn points, both that one as well as this one over here. So it's a very popular area of this map. It also gives you a line of sight to enemies up there, but I'm rushing a little bit too much through this area because there's a lot of stuff to cover. So first thing, you can go ahead and run upstairs here and go through this door, which takes you to the roof, whereas a lot of which is a very, very popular spot. Up here, I can get lines of sight to enemies throughout the entire square, so from there all the way down to there, which is very, very useful. And again, a lot of people will spend time up here, so if you're on the ground down there, you have to be very, very aware that there could be enemies up here, so just keep that in mind. Also from here, I get a line of sight to enemies that are coming down from where I showed you earlier, as well as enemies that are spawning over there, and even a pretty good line of sight over to enemies that are on B, which is very, very useful as well. So, I mean, again, this roof is a popular area, especially because it's kind of hard to see enemies up here. So if you're going to be fighting enemies, I'll show you once we move over to kind of this part of the map, the sort of square area, then I will show you how to kind of, you know, defend or attack this area. But if you're up here, you're at a pretty good advantage over enemies, because it just gives you a huge overview of the map. Even if I go all the way over here, I can get probably one of the better lines of sights to enemies that might be camping up there in that building, which is obviously very, very useful. Now going downstairs and heading over to my left, this basically takes us over to the B objective. The B objective is right here in this middle area, which, you know, is something to keep in mind, especially if you're playing domination, of course. But if I start over here and I go through the building this way, there's actually one of the first destructible environments on the map, and I can run through here, break this down, and then this gives me a very, very quick flank route to enemies. And I've actually surprised enemies a couple of times before, running through this destructible environment and then taking out enemies that are right there. It's super, super useful, and I highly recommend it. There's also another part of this area as well, part of this destructible environment, which if you're coming from the other side, it might actually be useful to run through this door and then get enemies that are on B for maybe a kill or two, but then they're going to pick up on it pretty quickly, so then you're going to have to run away. But if you run through here at a good time, then you can take enemies off of B and they won't even know you're there, which is very, very useful. So this is the first little bit of destructible environments here on the map Red Star. Now again, pushing into this area, you can get a line of sight to enemies that are in the square. Although I will admit and be completely honest here, which is the point of this entire video, enemies don't really spend a lot of time in the square because it is a very, very risky area. I'll show you guys it in a second, but just keep in mind that if you're going to play in the square, it's going to be risky and you're probably going to get yourself killed very, very easily. So now that that is out of the way, we can go ahead and cover the last little bit of this building, which gives you a line of sight over to enemies that are way over there, enemies that are there, and enemies that are there, as well as up there, and even enemies that are down here by this kind of trolley. And enemies are always there pretty much, especially over here. Be aware of that little rectangular wall, because you can actually get up there and head glitch on it, which I'll show you guys here in a little bit. So again, keep that in mind. And that's pretty much it for this building. I did show you guys this. This gives you a line of sight to enemies that are up there, as well as enemies that are spawning down here. And as far as weapons go on this map, I would definitely recommend snipers, snipers, rifles. They're not called assault rifles in World War II. And then, of course, sniper rifles and LMGs. I wouldn't recommend using an SMG or a shotgun on this map unless you are planning on staying either in the three main buildings of the map, because it just wouldn't be that wise. Coming up back here, again, this is kind of some empty space where you can kind of just call in a kill streak. Also, if you come through here, though, you can get a nice little flank route on enemies, maybe shoot an enemy in the back that's capturing A right there. But for the most part, this is kind of just a method to kind of get into that building there to get a flank route, or that building there, without drawing too much attention to yourself. Because if I'm over here, enemies can easily see me like super easily see me, and it's probably actually a better bet to go over to your right and go through there than to just be kind of out in the open here. So let's just go ahead and briefly talk about the square. There's not much to talk about because, as I said, it is a very risky place to be in, and almost no one is ever here. If I go into the square here, and let's just come up on this for the heck of it, I am just in the complete danger zone. I can get shot from probably 10 to 15 different angles. I can get shot from that spawn. I can get shot from up there. I can get shot from up there. I can get shot from where B objective is. I can get shot from that wall where the head glitch is. I can even get shot from that building over there. So I never recommend going into the square, but if you're feeling risky, you're feeling like a crazy person, this might be a very useful spot to get kind of a little shot on enemies that are coming from that spawn. Maybe you can get enemies that are up here, but for the most part, again, I just wouldn't recommend spending much time in the square. And by the square, I mean this, where I'm standing right now, where you guys can see the little fountain area. That is the square, what I'm referring to. I just wouldn't recommend spending any time in here, again, for a lot of reasons, but the biggest reason of all is that you don't want to ever spend time in the middle of the map ever, because that is where enemies spend most of their time, is in the middle of the map. But again, if you're feeling risky, you can get line of sights to enemies that are over there. You can even maybe get a very sneaky little line of sight to enemies that are up in that building camping. And then again, now I said I was going to promise that I was going to show you how to defeat that head glitch, and there's a few ways to do it. So one thing you can do is you can either mount on, or you can just use this car as a little advantage point. But just keep in mind that there is kick in this game. So probably the best way to beat that head glitch is to run over here, run through here, and then either mount on this truck, take out the enemies that are up there, or actually this is probably, I would argue, that is the best way to go about it. Or you can just use your lethal equipment to try and get the enemy out of there. But again, if you depending on where you spawn at A, it could be very risky. So it could just be a better bet to just run back behind you and go into that doorway there. But if you're feeling like you want to get into that engagement, you can sit behind this car here, try and take them out, or as I said, run through this building and then head glitch on one of those trucks. Now let's go ahead and head into this building here, which is actually probably one of my favorite environmental pieces of this entire map, which I'll show you guys as we go through here. But this is one of the third buildings of one of the fourth of many buildings here on this map that is sort of more of a route to get you to the spawns or the other objectives. There's no objective over here, so most of the action, or the action, is a little bit light over here, which is actually kind of nice. And also this allows you to get another kind of advantage. In fact, this is probably the best one to get an advantage over to enemies that are camping up there, because I can actually mount on these sandbags. I think I can even mount on this sandbag. Yes, I can. And then just take out enemies there. So if you're gonna, honestly, I just figured that out. I mean, so you can actually get a better advantage on enemies that are over there by, just hanging out right here. And what the heck happened to my game? That was weird. That was really weird. Anyways, I digress. So this building here, as I said, is kind of a way for you to get through to the other spawn point. There is a door here, and this basically, as I said, gets you to the other spawn point. Just be careful coming through here. This is probably one of the better areas for shotguns and SMGs. Obviously, assault rifles will do just fine. I wouldn't recommend coming through here with my SVT unless you're going to just wait on these stairs for enemies to come through. Then you can easily take them out. But for the most part, wouldn't really recommend coming through here that often, or just coming through here with an AR or a weapon like this, because it's just kind of risky. But again, not very much action happens here, but the little action that does happen here, just keep your sights up and be aware, because it's a pretty linear building. There's no routes to get out of, except for, of course, this one. But for the most part, you can just run through here. Now coming all the way through this area, this is one of my more favorite parts of the map, because it gives you a line of sight to that spawn way down there, as well as over there, and then up there as well. I actually like this area quite a bit. But that's basically all this does. It just gives you a pretty quick access to enemies that are running through there, as well as enemies that are maybe just camping over there. And even if I come back here a little bit, depending on what the enemy is doing up there, I can get a line of sight to enemies that are there as well. Now also, you can go on the outside of this building if you so please, and then kind of run in here and take some enemies off guard. But running through here is a little bit more risky, especially if there's someone camping up there, which pretty much every game there's going to be someone camping up there. So I mean, while you can run on the outside of this building to maybe get to the B objective, I wouldn't recommend it. So I guess maybe this isn't my favorite setting of the map. I mean, if you just look around the maps, you can see sort of like, you know, the bodies of soldiers, which is just, I mean, aesthetically, this map is just so good. I like it just so much. It looks amazing here in Vanguard. It looks so good. But also, the Russian theater of the war is one of the more interesting parts for me. Personally, I did a whole presentation on it in school, and it's just so interesting. Anyways, we're not here for me to nerd out about history. We're here to talk about Red Star as the map. Now, this is the back alley section, which you guys can see above me. And this is, again, a kind of a safe route to get into that building. But again, if you're coming through this area, you're going to want to keep your sights up on enemies that are at that doorway. Because if you don't, it's just not going to be good. And this is also that head glitch I was talking to you guys about earlier. This is a really good head glitch. Wouldn't spend much time up here because enemies will pick up on it. But from this head glitch, I can take out enemies there. You can take out enemies that are up there. Although if you're here at this head glitch, you're probably spawning over there behind me. So there's probably not going to be any enemies that are over there. But you can also use this from coming from the other side. But your odds of getting shot in the back are much higher. So this also gives me a very good line of sight to enemies that are around the B objective. Obviously, as I said, the B objective is there. But enemies will run through here. So I can get a nice line of sight to enemies that are there. And I can even get a line of sight to enemies that are camping up there. So while, as I said, that place up there is pretty safe in a way, I can easily pick up on it because it is, or I can easily defend or easily take out enemies that are up there because there are so many routes. And that's kind of the point of high ground in Call of Duty, is that while it can benefit you greatly, there's also a lot of ways to take enemies down that are up there. Just be careful about visibility here in this game. By the way, I am playing at 100 FOV. So just so you guys are aware, so an enemy that's going to be way over there with a low power sight is going to be a little bit harder to see than if I had a high power scope or a lower FOV. Now again, back here, this is kind of a route that takes you straight to the C objective. Would only recommend running through here if you're trying to get to enemies that are over here, or if you're trying to get back over to that head glitch where I just was. So now that is out of the way, I mean, the back alley is very easy to cover. We can go ahead and talk about this big building here, which is the final building of this video. And we're going to be able to upload this in one part. It's just going to be one of my longer map guide videos because, again, this map is huge. Now, coming through this doorway here, we enter one of the more popular areas of the map as well. I mean, never mind, that was a lie. This isn't one of the more popular areas of the map. This is just be aware that there will be enemies in here more often than not. So if I come through the doorway here, I get a line of sight to enemies that are down there, as well as I can run through this doorway, and this takes me to the middle of the map where there's some nice cover right here, so I can take out enemies that are down there. I can even take out enemies that are maybe running across here, and I can also take out enemies that are up there in that building if they're pushing a little bit too far forward. Coming over here now, I can also go, I think I can go behind me. Yep, can go behind me, go upstairs, which takes me to a nice head glitch, and as you guys saw earlier, I can actually get up there through this. So I can climb right here like this. And now I'm in this area and I can get to one of the larger head glitches. Here's another area of destructible environments. Now, believe it or not, the destructible environments on this map, actually, there aren't that many of them. And honestly, I don't really see much action happening up here. I think I've maybe been in the grand total of like 10 to 15 times I've played this map. I've really only been up here like once or twice and only had one gunfight up here. A lot of the times, enemies I just don't really find a need to be up here. But it is useful if you are up here. Again, there's a whole bunch of destructible environments up here, which is pretty cool. But again, a lot of the times, there's just not much action that happens up here. But if you do come up here, you actually have a pretty good advantage on enemies, which I will show you guys here in a second, just to try and destroy all of this destructible environments up here. But I mean, just aesthetically, this map is just so cool looking. I just really like it overall. But again, this is the other staircase that I'll show you guys in a second. But let's just go ahead and get into this building instead of just kind of beating around the bush and not really discussing this area too much. So this is the apartments area of the map, of course, up here. And this is where I was talking about, where while this is a good place to be, it's also very risky. I would argue it's even more risky than that head glitch that I showed you guys earlier on that roof. So being up here, basically I get a whole overview of the map just like I did over there, just from a different angle. So if I'm up here, I can get a line of sight to enemies that are at the head, which I showed you guys at the beginning of the video, enemies that are down there, enemies that are over there, the entire square is covered, enemies that are over there are covered, and then enemies that are running through there, I can also take out as well. So this is a pretty good area to be, except the only downside to this is, of course, it's a humongous hole in the wall where everyone is going to see you, so it's risky. Definitely is risky, but if you have my sniper rifle or my high-powered scope SVT, which I have here, it's actually a great place for me to be, for sure. Or even if I have a high-power, low recoil, or high optic sight AR with low recoil, this is also a very, very good place for me. I can also go to this window, which is probably one of the safer areas to be in. This gives me the same line of sight to enemies down there and down there, except it has more cover. So if you're going to be up here and you're going to be defending the objectives and stuff, I would probably actually recommend using this window here. There's also a window back here, which is probably one of the more useless areas to be, one of the more useless windows, I should say. It does give you a good line of sight to enemies that are there, and maybe enemies that are running through there, but for the most part, I'm not going to really get a very good line of sight to enemies that are over there on that side of the map or coming through here, because that pillar kind of blocks it. If I get really, really sneaky, maybe if I have a sniper rifle, again, an AR or an SVT, well, maybe this SVT because it's a 2-shot kill, maybe I will be able to get a kill from enemies that are there, but odds are probably won't happen, unfortunately, just because weapons don't really kill fast enough to have a split-second shot. But maybe if I have a sniper rifle, I could take someone out, and that is pretty much it. Now, if I go downstairs here, this is probably one of the more popular areas. Enemies do sometimes camp right here, so keep that in mind. I can run through this door here, but this is, I would honestly, would never recommend running through this part of the map here, because this is even more dangerous than that door there, because at least with that door there that I opened earlier, I have cover from that trolley. If I run through here, I have like 10 areas I can get shot from. So if you do happen to run through here, either run backwards because you realize you made a mistake, or just run through here and then keep your sights up, try and take out enemies that are there, and then run into this building. But again, I wouldn't recommend running through that door. It just puts you at a very, very bad spot. I can also come through here, which allows me to get to enemies that are over by C, or I can run through here and get a line of sight to enemies that are there. And now we have officially made a full circle and have officially done this map guide. But anyway, guys, that is going to do it for this map guide video. Again, as I said, it's a huge, huge, huge map. There's lots of stuff to cover. I'm bound to have missed something, which I do apologize for if I did miss anything, but you guys can feel free to leave that down below in the comments. But I'm not trying to spam these on purpose. That's why I've been covering all the beta maps. I actually have a whole Word document that is showing me how many times I've played each map, so I can make these map guides for you. I think I have one more map. I think the next map guide video will probably be on Das House, which is the map I played the most here in the game so far. And then we might take a little bit of a break from map guides, because I am trying to get 10 plays per map, so that the map guide videos can be the best that they can be. And guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully this was able to help you out. If it did, like rating is always appreciated. If you want to check out any of my previous map guide videos, they will all be linked down below in the playlist in the description. Those are the previous 2 map guide videos. Be at the end of the video as well. I'll see you guys all on another Call of Duty Vanguard video very, very soon.